In 2019, frustration over the growing cost of rental housing hit a boiling point in Oregon. Democratic lawmakers determined to make a change introduced Senate Bill 608.
Welcome, everyone. Today is February 18th, 2019. Welcome to the House Committee on Human Services and Housing.
The Senate passed the bill first, then took it to the Oregon House with the backing of powerful Democratic lawmakers like Ginny Burdick.
And it is my pleasure and honor today to introduce you to Senate Bill 608, which passed the Senate chamber last week. And it has been described in the press as an anti-gouging bill. And I think that's a good description for it because it prevents some of the worst abuses that we've seen in the housing crisis that we're experiencing.
Tina Kotek, then the Speaker of the House, said it would bring predictability and stability.
We have seen price gouging in rents. We have seen, I think, a very unfair use of evictions. And by doing this, removing the ability to unilaterally evict people without cause is something we've been working on for years. We need to fix that.
The bill was aimed at both rent increases and evictions. On evictions, it banned no-cause evictions after the first year, unless the landlord was going to move into the unit or change the use of the property or sell it to someone who would move into the unit. If any of those conditions were met, the tenant had to be notified 90 days in advance and, in some cases, paid 1 month's rent. Evictions for cause were still allowed. On rent increases, the bill capped any rent increase to 7%, plus the rate of inflation calculated by the Consumer Price Index. The rate would be measured from September through August and then announced in September. Rental units less than 15 years old would be exempt until they hit their 15th birthday. The bill had the backing of several community groups, including the Community Alliance of Tenants. Katrina Holland was executive director at the time and testified with her daughter by her side.
There is no new information, no angle to take or special words I can conjure up that can convey the myriad of tragedies that have transpired and continue to transpire for hundreds of thousands of renters in Oregon. No matter how we talk about it, how we phrase it, the fact of the matter is that under current law, through the use of no-cause evictions and unlimited rent increases, close to half of our population can have their housing stability decided by someone else, even if they've done all the right things.
But it was clear, even during the hearing, that the 7% increase plus the cost of living was a generous compromise. A report by the company CoStar, run for KGW at the time, showed Oregon rents had only jumped above 7% for a year, twice from 2001 through 2019, and the new law would allow it to jump 7% every year plus the CPI. And that fact was made clear to lawmakers by experts like Sybil Hebb from the Oregon Law Center.
What the bill provides is protection against rent gouging and rent spiking without notice. So landlords under the bill would be able to set rents however they liked at the beginning of a tenancy. Tenant agrees to the rent, moves in, and at that point the provisions of the bill would kick in and rent increases would be allowed as the landlord chooses up to a cap of 7% plus the Consumer Price Index as it pertains to the western region of the United States.
The committee chair made it clear the numbers were much higher than some cities had set for rent control. San Francisco, for example.
I might just make the point there that the San Francisco rent cap is at 0.6% of CPI, which last year I believe was came to 1.5%. It's very, very different than the 7% plus current CPI is somewhere around 3%. So it's a totally different order.
Few lawmakers objected. Republican Jack Zika, a realtor from the Redmond area, worried out loud about unintended consequences.
The studies I've seen, it's actually reduced the supply. In San Francisco, it was 15%. And a lot of those were condominium conversions. So you could make the argument that rent control can cause gentrification of our cities.
But the bill sailed through the House as it had the Senate, passing with a comfortable 35 to 25 vote, which is not to say everyone was on board. Margot Black, the co-founder of Portland Tenants United, protested the allowed rent increase as much too high.
I support the passage of the bill, frankly, but very, very reluctantly, and only because I have been told, from insiders in Salem that it is the very best we can get. I am very disappointed that it's the best we can get.
Before the month was over, Governor Kate Brown held a ceremony to celebrate.
This is a groundbreaking piece of legislation, as we are the first state in the nation to enact this level of protection for our renters. The bill is a critical tool for stabilizing the rental market throughout the state of Oregon.
The governor was asked why the rent increase cap was so high.
So I think, like a number of public policy measures, this is a compromise, and folks came to the table and worked out a solution that they felt would work for the rental housing market.
Eddie Pasador, a landlord, was at the bill signing and agreed it was a compromise that would not hurt industry.
A good compromise. It's definitely not an industry killer, so I don't see any objection to what we currently have going.
And that is how we got here.